to be talking about education. One of the things that I want you to know is that early on in my life, my goal was to be an educator. As a child, I loved playing school and teaching and, having my classmates and peers in my neighborhood. And I just play and play and play outside and always wanting to teach someone something. So, as I grew up, I thought that that would be the profession that I would choose. And then I went off to school and, was doing very well in school, ended up getting a scholarship to private boarding school for my high school years. And suddenly my goals and my thoughts about teaching began to change because it was the 60s, late 60s, coming into the early 70s. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about population boom and zero population, and how do we curb this explosion of people being added to our continent, to our world. And they often talked about zero population as it related to controlling children. I wanted to, be a powerful impact on having children. In fact, I thought I myself might one day want to have, maybe about 5 or 10 children. Thank God that that didn't materialize, although I know I do a great job with it. But, I thought that that would be something that I was really interested in. And so as they began to talk to me about it was only necessary to have one child and, people should only consider having one child or no children, I thought that was really absurd because what a joy it is to be a parent. What a joy it is to be an educator and to be a parent and an educator. And I thought, wow, this is really going to be what I'm very, very much, going to be compelled to do in my life. But they started to talk about the greater need, the need for psychologists and people who were going to practice psychology. So I really shifted my goals and shifted my vision and shifted what I desired to do for what I thought was more appropriate because someone told me that I should do something different. How often do we change what we want to do because someone else tells us that our goals and our dreams are not as important as we think that they are or that they don't have value? One of the things that I want you to know is that what you dream of and what you want to have happen in your life is so very important. It's so very important to have your own dreams and your own aspirations. And as we begin to grow and mature into adults, sometimes we get caught up in being um, something for everyone else, and we get concerned about whether or not we're going to be successful and, what kind of parents and things we're going to be. But, if you follow your passion and follow your dreams and really follow your hopes and aspirations, I want you to begin to think about what those are and to make those a priority in your life. And so, today, one of the things that I'm very excited about, we just finished Mother's Day just 2 days ago. And, what a joy for women who've had the experience of being mothers, but whether a woman has been a mother or not, I know that every woman has, at some point in her life, mothered or cared for someone. And today, my topic really has to do with those two things. It has to do about education. It has to do with the importance of teaching our young people and also of parenting. And my guest today is someone who I had an opportunity to meet really through her marvelous daughter when I was invited to do a business ad for her daughter's debutante ball. Um, I guess it was the program. And when I met her and I learned that, this young lady was very powerful, very energetic, had stepped out and, reached out to me, someone she did not know. And as she was asking me for that contribution, I asked something about her. I asked her to share where she went to school and, something about her career objectives. And when she shared that she was homeschooled, I was very excited because that's been a topic that I've had the discussion with my daughter many, many times. And then when I had the the opportunity to meet her mother and to begin a conversation with her mother, I knew that this was a topic that I was interested in, that others would be interested in as well. And so this morning, I'm welcoming my guest. Her name is Miss Joanna Cameron. She is a mother of four children who she has homeschooled. And it's really a blessing, first of all, to be a mother and to be willing to just take that role on, but to take on the role of mother and not just educator at home, but educator for their future. What a marvelous blessing that is, an opportunity. Miss Cameron, are you on the phone with me?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Josie.
Good morning. Good morning. If you'll just speak up just a little bit, I'm going to turn the volume up on my phone too. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I can hear you great. Am I okay now?
You're okay now. I am so appreciative and thankful that you've taken the time this morning to be on Josie's Inspiration, which is my sort of little haven of conversation that I get to learn new topics and to speak to people that I really want to know more about. And I really first wanted to congratulate you on the awesome job that you've done with your daughter that I met, and then to find out as I got your email this morning, I knew about two daughters, but to then find out that you are homeschooling not two, not one, not three, but four children. That is such an incredible blessing. And I thank you for being willing to be a mom and to be the educator that your children needed.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to say thank you as well for even inviting me to come on the show this morning. And I'm really humbled by the opportunity. And I just wanted to say thank you for that, and also for providing an outlet to be able for others to be able to express what they're doing. Such an avenue is so important to hear what's going on in our society today. So thanks again for all of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I really want to know is, just tell me a little bit about you. Often as moms, that's all people know us as that's mom. She's the wife, she's the mother. And people sometimes don't get to know who is the woman, Joanna Cameron, behind mom and wife.
Well, it's funny that you should ask that because, within what we do, that's, once you take on the hat of motherhood, it comes with so many other things. I'm a chauffeur as well. I'm a hairstylist as well. Home, domestic engineer at home. But for the most part, I would consider myself just to be a child of God, and just allowing Him to lead me in a direction that He would like for me to be used in, and outside of that, I am just really, really, really a humble person. I do enjoy writing. I do enjoy reading. Um, Currently I am taking courses with Liberty University, to pursue a degree in psychology. So, that's some of what I've done in the past. I've done some real estate as well, and I've done some editing, and so I still, dabble in all of those things from time to time, if um, time allowing, with homeschooling. That is full time, pretty much, and whenever the opportunity does allow, I will, take some time to do some of those things too.
Oh, that's incredible. So how long have you been homeschooling?
It's
I
been
know
12
you,
years.
12 years. Okay. So have any of your children ever attended public school or private school outside of homeschooling?
Well, my oldest daughter, she had gone to a private school for kindergarten, and throughout the years, they've taken courses, maybe a class with a subject that I really felt like it would be beneficial if they took outside of the home. Classes like that would be Spanish, for instance, higher level math, of course. But other than that, we've homeschooled exclusively. She was the only child that has gone out to an outside school.
And she's your oldest daughter, now
Yes,
18?
yes.
Awesome. So what made you begin to homeschool? Did anything occur during the school setting that made you want to homeschool, or was it something you had always wanted to do?
Well, actually, um, one of the reasons I guess that made us decide to homeschool was at the end of the school year, we realized how much traveling time we were taking to get back and forth to school. Um, and I also, after the school year was over for her that first year, I can recall her just being feeling or seemingly to be distant. I would ask her how was school. Okay, wasn't a whole lot of feedback, and I would have wanted, wanted from her to know what her
Mhm.
experiences were. And um, you know, my husband was in sales at the time, and so his job was really demanding, and we didn't have a whole lot of family time with her, and also not a lot of time to be able to instill the beliefs and morals that we believed was important for her to have. She went to a Christian school, of course, but at the time, still with her being gone 8 hours, husband being gone for 12 hours, at least during the day, um, it was just a lot of tug. Um, so um, also Christian school was really, the private school at that time was really expensive, and so we were just, weighing our options, looking at a few things. And a girlfriend said to me, Joanna, why don't you consider homeschooling? And my thoughts were, wow, homeschooling? I never really knew about it, other than what was stereotypical of homeschoolers, what people would say was stereotypical anyway. And so, um, I said, well, maybe I'll just have to look into it before I even try to consider that. And another very good friend of mine had went to the homeschooling convention that year, and she had brought me back so many wonderful materials from the convention, brochures about, really educating the heart of your child. It was just a lot of really good information, and so I looked through a lot of the literature. I went to the library and just started, looking up as many materials as I possibly can about homeschooling. And my thoughts were, well, this looks like it will be a task. Excuse me, it will be a task, but um, I knew that we really wanted to instill some morality. We wanted to be able to um, continue to flow in what we believe that we should be doing as a family. And we started it and just never looked back.
Mm. So you talked about, you mentioned some of the stereotypical things that you had heard. What were some of those things that you had heard about homeschooling prior to your starting?
Well, that the kids wouldn't be properly socialized. That they would be isolated. That you're isolating them from society. Um, that they would miss out on just a good childhood. Um, some of the things were that they would be very fearful. Um, those were what I can remember.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I think I shared with you that my daughter has three children, and she works from home. And I've talked to her. She's been, I guess, prior to being married and being a parent. When she was in school, she worked in a school system, as a college student prior to her graduation, and looked at education in a way, working with kids, that there was much more that was needed to really educate, as you talked about, the heart of a child. And I like the way you put that, the heart of a child, because that's the one thing that I see that gets lost so often when you see them, going off and they're excited and have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. And when they come back to you, it's like there's a void, like something's missing, something's been lost. And some of that's their innocence. And so I started talking with her, when my first grandchild was born, about homeschooling. I went out and bought books, and we kind of poured through them, and we kind of put it on the back burner, and So when I met you, I knew it was really a blessing right now in our lives because he's in kindergarten and we had started having that conversation again about, what was going to be best educationally for him. So how did I heard a couple of things. You talked about the homeschooling convention. So we're in Virginia, in the Richmond, Chesterfield area of Virginia. Where did you get resources in terms of community support in 1998? Because I would imagine then it might not have been as easy or as accessible for resources as it is now.
You're right. There weren't as many resources as there is today. Basically, homeschooling has a entire community to itself in a sense, a whole lot of resources now, which is wonderful. But even then in 98, we still had a good bit, but not nearly as much as now. But the Home Educators Association of Virginia was a great resource. It still very much is so now. Um, and basically, they gave us a really good start. Um, you know, you, we would call, we would, you know, communicate, and they would give us as much information as we can to point us to the right direction. Again, I just, really went to the library as well to, um, see if there were some local communities or local groups, support groups here that we could be a part of. Um, One of the things too, and then internet was still very, really good resource as well. And, just doing searches through that, I was able to find some local support groups that we were able to be a part of. Um, some of them weren't on the same size of town that we had lived on, so we did used to travel still a little bit to participate with some of the events. But um, we found Richmond Regional Home Educators, Mechanicsville Christian Center had a very good uh, support group as well. And there is a few others, and now there is a lot more areas that will be able to accommodate your homeschooling endeavors.
Mm. So, what are the general requirements when you make the decision, for parents, who are thinking about it and who think, well, I don't have an education degree, how will I know how to find the subjects and the topics? What are the basic requirements that you feel or that you at that time, found out that you needed to have, and what do you see today as some of the requirements that would be beneficial for a parent considering homeschooling?
Well, um, on a relationship side, you really your ultimate requirement really would be just to have a heart to want to make sure that your child is getting or your children are getting what's needed most. And one of the things that I always say is that um, if you put children in the right environment, you give them the tools to learn, they will learn. You give them whatever it is that they need. Just like a seed, if you put good soil, put water there, that seed is going to grow ultimately. Um, and that's the thing you want to do with your children, just basically providing a patient and loving atmosphere, and they'll thrive. Um, and on the practical side, though, one of the things that you would do as far as following the code, you would have to file a notice of intent with whatever district you're with. Um, One of the things about the state of Virginia, though, they're really homeschooler friendly. Um, so what they've done, though, is amended some of the requirements that is needed. Generally, you can file under whether you have a high school diploma. You can go ahead and fill out on that notice of intent the the area that will let you know that you can put that you have the high school diploma, and they would ask for a copy of that or associate's degree or baccalaureate degree or whichever you have. Um, you can also, if you are a qualified teacher, you can check that off. Um, or there is some correspondence school, whereas correspondence schools are when the children do the coursework and they send it back to like a satellite school that's their governing body for whatever educational program they're working on with that particular program. Um, and also, the state will ask for a general guideline of what you're planning to teach for that upcoming year. Um, a lot of that will basically consist of math and reading. They really want to know what you're planning to use for those subjects, um, and to make sure that you're abiding by the standards of learning objectives. Not to say that you have to take the exams, but they still would like to see that you're including some of those objectives in your program.
Wow, that's very interesting. So it really has to do with the individual, family, and parents making the decision and then filing that notice of intent and then providing support documentation to the Education Association um, to verify that you're going to teach them. Now, at the end of the year, what do they require to demonstrate that you have met, the criteria that you set forth in the beginning of the year?
Well, either they would ask for um, a standardized test score, whereas you could administer a standardized test, depending on which one it is. California Achievement Test, um, are ones that you could administer yourself, but other tests like Iowa and Stanford, I believe that you have to be a certified teacher in order to administer those. So you basically would have the child tested, and send the results back in by August. Or another option would be to provide a portfolio of some of the work that you've done throughout that past school year and submit that into your school district, or whoever is the homeschooling coordinator for that particular district. And they will let you know at the end of the year, or excuse me, at the end of the term, whether or not you've met the requirements. And if not, then they will let you know what else needs to be added at that
Oh,
time.
so you mentioned a homeschooling coordinator. Is that someone who is assigned to you at the point that, well, let me back up, the notice of intent, do they have to approve that, or do you just submit it and then you're, off and on your way?
No, it does have to be approved. Basically, they do look at what you're planning to teach, and they wanted to make sure that you followed. And it's not as daunting as it may sound, but they do want to make sure that it's being governed. Um, so they want to make sure that everything that you're putting in your program is enough, is sufficient enough to be able to, whatever grade the child is in, to make sure that they're getting what they need for that particular grade.
And then at that point, you're assigned a coordinator.
From my experience, I live in Chesterfield County. We've only had, I think there's one coordinator for us, as a body. I don't know that there's more than one. I've had the same coordinator since we started.
That's very interesting. This is very exciting. I really, I'm getting excited. I'm online. I'm searching about the Homeschool Educators Association. I see the convention is coming up in June this year, so I'm certainly going to make a plan to attend it. So at the conventions, do you find um, that there, in terms of um, I guess the breakdown, are there moms who are homeschoolers? Are there mom and dads who are homeschoolers? You know, what is, sort of the social breakdown of different ethnicities, age groups, and things like that you've noticed?
Well, I feel so bad to say this, but out of all of the years that we have homeschooled, I haven't really partaken in the conventions on that level. Um,
Okay.
the only reason being is that usually that time of year, the children were either in some event, or the time just didn't allow us to be able to participate in the convention on that level. I had gone 2 years, though. One year, my husband was the athletic director of Spirit Athletic Association, which is a great organization for homeschoolers who want to play sports. Central Virginia is another great association as well. Spirit is basically, I guess, those who live on the west end of Richmond. But usually will, um, participate with that particular organization. Central Virginia is located on the south side. So basically, one year my husband was the athletic director of Spirit Athletics, and so we had a table up at the convention, and so we were able to speak to parents and families there. So what I've observed from that particular setting was you would have homeschooling teachers who've come through, who taught co-ops. You would have grandparents that would come through. Of course, parents, children, they would look at the tables from what I saw of some of the materials that were available, and it's just so much available there. You can see the anticipation, you can see the excitement, and also the unity of knowing that there's others out there who are doing this same thing that I am. So we're together. So that was what I can recall from that. And the other time I've gone to, it wasn't actually a convention, it was just at the end of the convention was the actual homeschooling graduation for that particular year. And such an awesome graduation, just to see the amount of work and dedication that both the parents and students have put into the education of their children and themselves. It was just a great way to celebrate and also bring to an end of the high school endeavor of
Mm-hmm.
education.
So how is it determined the grade level? Is it done by the achievement based on the standardized testing that the state requires? Because I would imagine as a parent, you might want to just go ahead and get your child through everything so that they can finish quicker. But what is the I guess are the grading periods in terms of you know elementary school, middle school, high school? If your child is excelling, how do you make a determination what grade they're in and what point they're ready for graduation?
Well, that's pretty much up to the parents and the student. Of course, there are some students that I've met who homeschooling students that is who decided that they wanted to graduate um, a year earlier or 2 years earlier. So what they would do is know what amount of credits they would need in order to fulfill fulfill the requirements in a particular subject, and then of course guide themselves accordingly, and then go ahead and the parent can then give credit for that particular course. Um, my daughter, for instance, the oldest child, she'd been able to take courses at John Tyler when she was 14 because we pretty much finished all of what we needed for high school by that time. So she um, entered into John Tyler during a concurrent enrollment, um, and she took English 111, um, which is what would be equivalent for your beginning English courses for college level. Um, then she took Spanish. We didn't. I didn't do Spanish at home at all, and then she took a college biology. So basically, it's pretty much up to the parent as to how advanced they want the child, or how fast they want the child to accelerate through the program through the program that they're choosing. And if so, then just be able to make themselves available of the resources that's there.
So she's graduating this year. Um, is if she's planning to go to college, is she entering as a freshman or a sophomore? How would that fall out for her?
Well, she's a few credits away from sophomore status, so she still would be a freshman. Um, she has her English, she has Spanish, she has met her math requirements and her science requirements met. Um, but she will still be a sophomore probably until the next semester. After she finishes this semester out, she will be considered a sophomore in college.
Okay. Oh, that's very exciting. So when you're homeschooling, one of the things that as I was beginning to talk to my daughter and, listen and begin to get other information that I heard was that I found really exciting that makes sense is that you're not locked into a certain day schedule. So, you could choose to homeschool your child in the evening and do activities in the day. How do you structure that time? And, do you have to document a certain number of hours, or is it just based on achievement of, the curriculum goals?
Well, generally, the law does state that we should complete 180 days. Um, and, when I look on our homeschooling day, there's so many opportunities that we can um, name education, whereas one might not necessarily think of it if they're not necessarily in the homeschooling arena. For instance, I use an example. Me and my son were talking the other day about the oil spill, and um, Caleb was 12, and so he wanted to know a little bit more about how did it happen, um, what were some of the what were some of the instances surrounding the oil spill. And so I went on to explain to him that an oil rig exploded. Had to, explain to him a little bit more about what the oil rig was. Explain to him a little bit about how it affected um, the ocean, and how it also affected some of the fishermen in the area. Um, Also told him a little bit more about how some of those fishermen were suing, the oil company. They put in something to a lawsuit pretty much for the oil company. So all in that instance right there, we had a science lesson pretty much because we talked about the ocean and the fish. A little bit about business because we talked about how it affected the fishermen. So, that's just some
And a little bit
idea
of
of
law.
exactly a
And
little bit of
and
law.
stuff into the law, yeah.
Exactly. So that's a lot of what we do as well. We visit museums. We visit. I had a really good friend who was in theater, and she would invite us to come to her shows. So we can use that as art because we would, she would talk to the children a little bit more about what she would do in terms of preparation for her shows. Nikki, for instance, I know how you shared with us how you met her. Um, Her education program is a little bit different from the others in that she definitely has an entrepreneurial bent. Um, so there are little things that she would do that might be a little bit different from what her sisters and brother would do. Um, she gets online and researches some things that she would like to pursue in terms of fashion and design and business. Um, and so we would just walk through different steps. She basically would, solicit ads or what have you, just so that she can go ahead and finish out some of the programs that she was working on. Um, and so that we can use that as economics and marketing in some cases too. So it just depends on basically, um, just a total worldview in a sense. One of my oldest daughters, one had gone to Guatemala last year for a missions trip. Janique is going to go to El Salvador this year, and so we can use that as credit as well uh, for high school as well. So it really depends. There's a whole different worldview, I guess, when it comes to, or perspective, I should say, when it comes to homeschooling. It doesn't necessarily have to be looked at like a classroom setting, so to speak.
Exactly. They do have a whole lot of experiences available to them that we can say is education for them.
So how were they given the opportunity to travel to Guatemala and El Salvador?
Well, our church has a great missions, a heart for missions, I should say. And so last year, the missions team sponsored a missions trip to Guatemala. And they were basically helping an orphanage there. So what the children did was put on a few performances for the orphanages. They've also done some performances in there. Um, they provided toys and clothing and some basic necessities like toiletries, toothbrushes, and things like that to a community there. Um, the same uh, the same mission will be continued in El Salvador this year as well, with the same general guidelines that they've done in Guatemala as well.
That's very exciting. When I met her online, her email, it was so professionally done, and my initial question, because I didn't know her and I didn't, want to know how she found. Well, I knew she found me through a local magazine, but when I asked for, information about her, and she sent me her resume and her goals statement, it was prepared just as though an adult had done it. Seeking employment, but it just was very well written. I was very impressed, especially after she told me she was homeschooled, because even though I know the power and the great abilities and offerings that parents can bring to the table, I had not met a child who had been homeschooled and had no experience with anyone who had gone through that as an opportunity. So I was really excited, and then really exceptionally excited when I had a chance to meet you, and then now to have a chance to have you on the show with me. Do you think she'd be open to sharing just her sense or sharing something with the radio today?
I I talked to Janique about it, and I guess I can ask again. She was a little hesitant, I guess, because she was thinking,
okay.
"Oh my goodness."
That's okay, because this is one show. I certainly want to have you come back on again, because what I love to be able to do is to have maybe some parents on who can ask questions. I know my daughter, I don't know if she's actually getting a chance to listen now because she works from home, and she has two little children at home. Which is one of the other questions that I was going to ask is, how do you balance the diversity of ages with your children in working with them in a curriculum? Because I know for my daughter, the children would be right now. The oldest is 6. He's in kindergarten, finishing his first kindergarten year, and the other two are 2 and 1. So it would be, I think. She's looking at it. She's looking at it for the upcoming year. But how did you do this with younger children when they're in different age groups, and how did you find that balance? And did you kind of incorporate everything into one, or did you have separate times that you did it, or you did just had the separate curriculum?
Well, honestly, even though, listen to the ages of your grandchildren, even though at that age they're, busy, it still was fun because you're able to provide activities for them that are fun and educational, and that will keep them occupied as well. So I can remember one year Janique and my oldest daughter were maybe about 5 and 6, or maybe 6 and 7 at the time, and I was on bed rest. Preparing to have my youngest daughter, but I had gone through some medical problems at the time, and so I was on bed rest for about a month with her. And so I can remember we were talking about pioneers at the particular time, and I can remember making a log cabin, laying in the bed, making a log cabin out of brown paper at the time, brown craft paper, just rolling logs, and we were constructing a log house. And so with the sciences and history lessons, some of those can be combined, and whereas not as though you're having to provide lesson plans, well, I shouldn't say lesson plans, but you wouldn't have to provide duplicate lesson plans for different grades for history and science, because you can pretty much come up with some topics and just generally break it down to whatever level the children are at that time. Maybe if one child can do a little bit more writing, you'll give that child a little bit more writing for those subjects, whereas you might give the child that's younger a little lesser load, but you still would want the same topic. With math, though, we do use I do separate books for them two are 13 months apart, and then the younger two are 16 months apart. And between the two sets, there's about a 5 or 6 year um, difference. So, um, with the math and with the writing, some writing activities, I can't give them the same things because they are on different levels. But with history and science, it's really good to be able to combine it, and they enjoy it too because they have something that they can all talk about.
Right. And the thing I remember, my children are 5 years apart, my daughter and my son, and, you know, as she was learning, he always wanted to do what she was doing, and it actually, I think, encourages growth in education for the younger children because they want to see what their siblings are doing and they learn quickly. I noticed with the 2 year old and even with the 1 year old, their language skills are enhanced because they're hearing what is happening with the 6 year old, and they're picking up the language, and you know fortunately it's all good language, but that just also reminds us how impossible young minds are because they're like sponges. They absorb what you give them, and so they pick up on their alphabets and the songs and the colors and things right away because they've been hearing it over and over again as the older child is coming home and having to do the assignments. So there is a great advantage by having the older children, even though they may be a spread in their ages. But certainly I think it actually may make it easier for the younger ones because they have a sense of the importance of education and being educated because they saw it happening, with their older siblings.
I agree. My youngest daughter, she started reading when she was 4, and she was reading newspapers at age 4. And I really can't say that I spent as much time teaching her um, at that particular time because, like you said, she had her older brother and sisters to model after, and she would just pick up items, or she would hear us going over um, the vowel song and going over consonants, and um, she would just pick it up, and before we knew it, she was able to read newspapers and read little passages, um, and I wouldn't want to say that it was effortless, but it just was easier because she was in that environment already. So I would agree with what you said. It kind of makes it easier for the younger ones when they have older siblings around to model after.
Mm. This is Josie's Inspiration, and I've been talking today with Mrs. Joanna Cameron, who is the mother of 4 beautiful homeschool children. I have not met them all, but having met one, I can only imagine how awesome the other 3 are. And having this conversation with her has been very informative. We've been talking about homeschooling, and Ms. Cameron, would you share maybe a website or two for the maybe just what are the first steps that you would give advice to a parent who's looking to homeschool? Where should they start?
Well, I would definitely recommend one is Home Educators Association of Virginia. Basically, Home Ed HEAV is what it's called for short. They have a whole wide range of resources available, and if it's not on their website, they definitely refer you to someone else who may have what you're looking for. That website is www.heav.org, and Richmond Regional Home Educators as well is www.rrhe.org. Both of those associations are able to um, provide the notice of intent, which is what you would have to do in order to homeschool in the state of Virginia, whether you're going to um, provide them with the documentation of your curriculum, or also, I forgot to mention, religious exemption. There are some who do take a religious exemption where they don't have to um, provide all of the necessary documentation every year. But that is a great place to start. And basically, one of the things that um, you would have to do is also contact your local district, your local school district, and they'll let you know where to send the notification.